Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost, where we get you the top 50 stories from around the world. I'm Alison LaGrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin. Now we start with the latest updates on the tensions in West Asia. A preliminary US intelligence assessment, reportedly from the Defense Intelligence Agency, has suggested that the damage from the US strikes on Iran's nuclear sites may have been less than first claimed. The report allegedly said the strikes likely failed to destroy the core components of Iran's nuclear program or eliminate its uranium stockpile. However, US President Donald Trump has dismissed the report, calling them a bid to demean US military strikes. Iranian President Mossad declared a great victory following a US-brokered ceasefire that ended the 12-day war with Israel. Pezeshkian told Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman that Iran is ready to reconcile with the US. Meanwhile, celebrations erupted in Iran's capital of Tehran, where people marched on the streets with Iranian flags. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also claimed victory against Iran. In a speech, Netanyahu said that Israel achieved a historic victory that would stand for generations. He said that two immediate existential threats were removed: the threat of annihilation by nuclear bombs and the threat of annihilation by 20,000 ballistic missiles. Netanyahu further added that Israel must complete the campaign against the Iranian Axis, defeat Hamas, and bring about the release of all hostages, the living and the fallen. New satellite images from Mossad technology show extensive destruction to Iran's Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz nuclear sites, as well as damage near Tehran's Mehrabad airport following US-led airstrikes. Some craters at Natanz have already been covered with dirt. Iran has hanged 3 men accused of spying for Israel. Officials say the men attempted to import equipment in Iran in order to carry out assassinations. The sentence was carried out in the northwestern city of Urmia. Meanwhile, during the conflict with Israel, Tehran also arrested nearly 700 people, accusing them of having ties with Israel. Casualty figures from Iran and Israel have come after their 12-day-long conflict. As per the Iranian Health Ministry, 610 people died and over 4,500 people were injured, while Israel's army radio revealed that 28 people died after Iran launched over 500 missiles and 1,000 drones during the conflict. After floating the idea of a regime change in Iran, US President Donald Trump has made a U-turn. Now Trump says he doesn't want a regime change in Iran. The US president's flip-flop comes after Iran and Israel agreed to a ceasefire. He also said that he would like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible. On the sidelines of the NATO summit, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with US President Trump, pushing for stronger defense collaboration and a $100 billion trade goal. Erdogan also backed the Iran-Israel ceasefire and called for diplomacy to ease suffering in Gaza. The 2-day NATO summit is underway in The Hague. Now, the summit is being seen as a diplomatic olive branch to US President Donald Trump, with European allies hoping a new pledge to increase defense spending will reaffirm his support for the alliance. The summit is expected to approve a defense budget goal of 5% of GDP of the member countries. NATO chief Mark Rutte admitted the hike won't be easy, but called it essential for collective security. The Israeli army stated today that 7 of its soldiers died in combat in Gaza. The army's website listed the name of 5 soldiers and a platoon commander. Now, the 7th soldier's family didn't permit the army to release his name. As per reports, over 430 soldiers have died since the conflict began in 2022, triggered by Hamas. Now, 33-year-old Muslim socialist and State Assembly Manzoor Mamdani clinched the Democratic nomination for New York City mayor. Now, he defeated the former governor Andrew Cuomo in Tuesday's primary. Mamdani is the son of the acclaimed Indian-American filmmaker Mira Nair. "Tonight we made history," Mamdani declared his victory speech, flanked by jubilant supporters. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's star-studded wedding celebration in Venice has been quietly relocated to a more secluded part of the lagoon city. It was originally set to take place in Cannaregio, and the move follows weeks of public outcry from locals and activist groups who accuse the ultra-wealthy couple of turning Venice into a private amusement park for the rich. Organizers expect 200 to 250 VIPs at the tightly controlled event. The Axiom Mission 4 launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center today, with the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule riding atop a Falcon 9 rocket. The international crew includes astronauts from India, Poland, and Hungary, marking their return to human spaceflight after decades. This also marks a big day for India, as the Air Force pilot Shubhanshu Shukla is also on board. The mission will dock at the International Space Station for a 14-day stay. Japan test-fired a Type 88 surface-to-ship short-range missile on its own soil for the first time. The missile was used to target a boat with no crew, and the test took place on Hokkaido Island, marking a shift from Japan's past practice of conducting ties abroad. And Japan says that the drill was intended to boost the skills of personnel. This is amid a defense buildup aimed at deterring China. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has sharply criticized Boeing for its failure to prevent the January 2024 mid-air panel blowout of an Alaska Airlines 373 MAX 9 flight. The board called the incident entirely avoidable. In a scathing report released yesterday, the NTSB faulted Boeing's inadequate training, poor oversight, and missing safety protocols. And in climate news, over 80,000 people were evacuated on Tuesday after severe flooding hit southwest China. The floods reportedly struck southwestern province earlier this week. Torrential rain submerged roads and destroyed buildings. Rescue teams used boats and drones to evacuate stranded residents. The flooding came amid extreme weather conditions across China. Officials warned that more heavy rain could follow. At least 10 people died in a landslide in Antioquia in Colombia. The slide struck early on Tuesday after heavy rain soaked the mountainside. According to officials, 15 people were injured and another 15 remain missing. Rescue teams and local volunteers dug through debris to find survivors. Authorities evacuated families and set up temporary shelters at schools. And hundreds of firefighters battled wildfires on Greece's Chios Island for a third straight day on Tuesday. The fires burned through forests and farmland, forcing villagers to evacuate. According to reports, over 400 firefighters, planes, and helicopters were on the scene. Local residents and volunteers joined efforts to protect homes. The island is under a state of emergency as firefighting continues. And according to the U.S. National Weather Service, millions across the U.S. sweat as heat wave covers central and eastern states. The NWS issues extreme heat warnings for this week. Cities like New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia see temperatures near 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And some places like Utah recorded their highest temperatures of the year. People are being told to stay hydrated and to limit time outdoors. Plastic trash filled Bogota's main square as recyclers protested on Tuesday. Thousands of bottles were dumped to demonstrate the impact of their work. The National Association of Recyclers led the rally, demanding better pay and conditions. Families and workers joined the action in Bolivar Square, and protesters urged authorities to raise material prices and to recognize their role. And on to business and tech news now. Stock markets in Asia traded mixed earlier today, with investors weighing the Iran-Israel ceasefire alongside fresh commentary from US Federal Reserve. Japan's Nikkei and Australia's stock benchmark were flat, while Taiwan's index gained 1%. And Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose by 0.6%. Meanwhile, oil prices edged higher, finding some respite after plummeting in the last two sessions, as investors assessed the stability of a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Brent crude futures rose by 1.1% to $67.89 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude also gained 1.1% to $65.08 earlier today. And PGIM, the investment arm of Prudential Financial, has announced a major restructuring, combining its fixed income and private credit units to form a nearly $1 trillion credit platform. The changes were a part of an overhaul that the company had undertaken in recent months to stay competitive in a rapidly evolving sector. Spirit Airlines urged the U.S. Transportation Department to reject a proposed partnership between JetBlue and United Airlines, calling the deal anti-competitive. It warned that the partnership could prompt similar moves by other large carriers, forcing smaller airlines to join along. This came after United and JetBlue said last month that their tie-up would allow travelers to book flights on both carriers' websites, while interchangeably earning and using points in their frequent flyer programs. McDonald's and Krispy Kreme announced that they would end their partnership in the United States by next month, after struggling to manage the costs associated with the venture. Krispy Kreme said efforts to align costs with demand were unsuccessful, making the partnership unsustainable. Under the partnership announced last year, McDonald's had planned to sell Krispy Kreme's donuts as a part of its breakfast menu at more than 14,000 stores in the U.S. H&M-backed Swedish textile recycling firm Sire announced that it would supply recycled polyester to the U.S. retailers Gap and Target. This came as demand for sustainable fashion continued to grow. Sire said that Gap planned to use 10,000 tons of recycled polyester per year, while Target would incorporate it into a selection of products. And cruise operator Carnival Corp has raised its annual profit projections for this year. Driven by last-minute bookings, strong onboard cruise spending and higher ticket prices, the quarterly earnings report came as the sea-based vacations remained more affordable than land-based options, particularly for lower-income customers seeking value during economic uncertainty. Canada's BlackBerry raised its annual revenue expectations for this year, citing steady demand for its cybersecurity services amid a rise in online crimes and hacks. This came as analysts said that cybersecurity had remained largely insulated from broader spending volatility and was likely to continue as a top priority for customers. In an annual survey of grocery suppliers released today, Amazon was again ranked the worst UK food retailer for code compliance. Britain's groceries code adjudicator said that only 66.4% of suppliers believe that Amazon mostly or consistently followed the rules, though that was an improvement from last year. Now, the regulator also confirmed it had launched a separate investigation into Amazon's supplier payment practices. And Uber Technologies has announced that it had begun autonomous ride-hailing services in Atlanta in partnership with Alphabet's Waymo. The service covered a 65 square mile area of the city and followed a similar rollout in Austin, Texas earlier this year. Uber said that dozens of Waymo's self-driving vehicles would operate on surface streets, with fares matching standard UberX and Comfort rates. And moving on to sports news, and we begin with cricket. England beat India by 5 wickets in the first of their 5-match Test series. England resumed on the 5th day on 21-0, needing 350 more runs. Now, Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley swung the game England's way with an opening partnership of 188 runs. India's attack was led by world number 1 Test bowler Jasprit Bumrah, but the paceman failed to take a wicket in the second innings, following his 5-wicket haul earlier in the game. New Zealand will host Australia, England, South Africa and West Indies across multiple formats over the 2025-26 home summer. The Kiwis will kick off the season with a 3-match T20 series against rivals Australia starting the 1st of October. And this will be followed by a white ball home series against England. In athletics, Indian javelin throw superstar Neeraj Chopra clinched the title at the Golden Spike meet in Czech Republic. Chopra emerged on top in a 9-man field in Ostrava with an effort of 85.29 meters in the World Athletics Continental Tour Gold event. Now, in the absence of Chopra's German rival Julian Weber, the field in Ostrava was thin and double Olympic medalist was the favorite for the title. And in football news, Liam Delap has scored his first Chelsea goal in a 3-0 win over Tunisian champions Esperance. With this, the Blues moved into the last 16 of the Club World Cup. The game was decided by 2 goals in the first half stoppage time by Tosin Adarabioyo and then Delap, and Tyreek George then added the third in injury time to seal the match. And Portugal's Benfica beat German champions Bayern Munich 1-0 to book their place in the last 16 of the Club World Cup. Benfica grabbed the lead in the 13th minute when the Norwegian winger hit the back of the net. And Neymar extended his contract with Brazilian club Santos until the end of 2025. The 33-year-old said that he was following his heart by extending the contract. He said, and I quote, "Santos is not just my team, it's my home, my roots, my history, and my life," unquote. And women's world number 8, Iga Swiatek, kicked off preparations for Wimbledon with straight sets win over Victoria Azarenka in Bad Homburg. The 5-time Grand Slam champion eased to a 6-4, 6-4 success over fellow former world number 1 to reach the quarterfinals. And shock French Open semi-finalist Louis Boisson was eliminated in the first round of qualifying for Wimbledon. The French woman lost to Canada's Carson Branstein 2-6, 7-6, 4-6 in a match which lasted over 2 hours. And in badminton, India's Ira Sharma made the cut for the women's singles main draw of the US Open. This after the women's world number 92 advanced in the women's singles format of the US Open. The 25-year-old beat Adisha Gupta of the United States 21-19, 21-11 in their opening match. And in Formula One, the 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel could soon be back in the arena with Red Bull. Vettel revealed that he is in talks with Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko for a potential return. It remains unclear whether Vettel would join as a driver or in another role. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Fast and Factual. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Firstpost America. We're live in Washington, D.C., and coming up on the program, the fragile ceasefire between Iran and Israel hangs in the balance as tensions in the region continue to simmer. We've got this and latest on other stories, but first, a look at the latest headlines. Iranian authorities say they have transferred prisoners out of Tehran's notorious Evin prison hours after it was hit by an Israeli airstrike. Several Western activists had been jailed in this notorious prison as well. Uganda's ruling party says the country's long-serving president will seek re-election in early next year after almost 4 decades in power. French anti-fraud authorities order Tesla to stop the commercial practices after an investigation